Material for the brain. Conversations for thinking bodies. Hello and welcome to Material for the Brain podcast. The following is a conversation I had with Defne Erdur. Defne is a mover, researcher, and a therapist working in the fields of performing arts, health, and education. She is trained in contemporary dance, sociology, expressive art therapy, and trauma healing. I met Defne a decade ago while we were both teaching in the First Austrian Contact Festival. About 2 years ago, during the early time of COVID, there was a big discussion on my Facebook wall around the topic of race. It was a very heated space, and Defne and I decided to shift the conversation over to Zoom. We started to meet online every second week for a period of a few months. And these meetings were extremely valuable for me and also for Defne. And it started the spark in me that led to the creation of this podcast. And last April, Defne and I met again, this time in person, again in a contact event. And our meeting reminded me the pleasure I take talking to Defne. We both have very different perspectives on many topics, but no matter how hard we disagree, we always manage to find a space in which we can peacefully exchange and coexist. So I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share this conversation with you, and I hope you will find it valuable as much as I do. Hello, Defne. How are you? Welcome to my podcast. How are you?
I'm super happy to see you. I'm in the rush of things, but it's a nice time to pause and connect. I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm happy that I can offer it to my guest, a time to pause and reflect and talk. I think that's one of the nicest things about the podcast. The people take the time to talk lengthily. It's quite rare.
And I like talking, so no worries.
Yeah, but nevertheless, most of the people I speak, colleagues, people are busy, and I think it's quite precious to have this opportunity. So I'm very grateful for you to come here. And we met recently in Italy, and you told me kind of as a joke, yeah, I was the pre-podcast first guest, and that's actually a nice anecdote that I'm happy to have you here, because in a way, 2 years ago, kind of before I started the podcast project, we had a period of, a few months that we met online to speak. And in a way, I was practicing conversing with you on some different political topics. So, and then it gave me the wish to actually make something public, a public format where I can actually host. So I'm very happy that finally we can also meet here and not just behind the curtains.
True. And that was also another time of taking pause reflect on what things hit us, Like there was this conversation on social media that you posted something or I posted something, and there was these comments, and then I think I proposed, Matan, it's tiring to write and try to understand. Can we just have a talk? And then those talks was really nourishing for me, although we had a lot of disagreements or different parallel conversations going on. It was very rich. I was taking notes and reflecting even after. So I really appreciate this exchange also. That's why it stuck with me and I could make that joke.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, definitely. If there is something that I'm learning to appreciate more and more, is people who have the capacity to dive into difficult conversation, that there is a kind of quite fundamental disagreement between the conversational partners, but that we can go through the emotional challenge of holding such spaces, because eventually I think that the other option is either disconnection or escalation. So I appreciate what we've shared in the past, and also what we're gonna share now. So first, what's up with you? How are you? What have you been doing since I've seen you in Italy?
Oh, a lot, huh? Life is fast, and I'm in a period of my life that I really consciously make the choice of going towards ease and effortlessness. But of course, it's not easy because I have to survive also, and I'm a freelancer still. I do teach dance and travel for teaching, but at the same time, even before pandemic, I have a practice online. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, which is a body-oriented psychotherapeutic modality for healing trauma. And so I have an online practice also. So which is the gift of it is that I can do it anywhere. So I can travel and also continue being somehow stable in front of my camera. And I did buy myself a little minivan in the last fall, and I'm traveling now in Europe, teaching, giving sessions, and enjoying nature. But at this very moment, my van is in Italy in service, and I had to fly to Turkey to attend a training. I'm assisting also in somatic experiencing trainings, training more trauma-informed therapists. And I'm also going to teach contact improvisation in Ankara, in the capital of Turkey, in 2 days. I'm teaching today actually, in a modality, dance therapy modality in one of the universities. And then I'm going to go back to my family in Izmir and spend some time with my mom and dad after so many months of not really seeing them in quality time. I promised to not open my computer and have 4 days immersion in family. It will be nice by the sea. And the summer is at the door, so there will be a lot of traveling and teaching. And I feel quite grounded in this movement, across the globe after the COVID period. It's not really past, but I feel it's lighter. And I was very lucky that I could really move. I was not stuck in one place. The very first year I was, but then due to my ability to move with my car and my van now, I was able to move across France and Europe and Turkey, where my bases are. I was born and raised in Turkey, and the last 6 years I'm based in France. Now my base is slowly shifting towards Italy, Slovenia. My family is there. So yeah, I feel my contact family and I feel more at home in that space now. So there's a lot of movement, in internal and outside movements is here.
And how is it being at your home country? How does it feel?
Now, yes. Honestly, this time it's different because I feel I'm more aligned with myself. I almost feel like an upgraded version of myself, that I'm really like, wow, I'm aware of things and I know where I am, what I do, my choices. And I'm staying at the home of one of my masters, Şebnem Aksan, who is the founder of the ballet and the contemporary department in Turkey. And every time I come back, I stay at her home in Istanbul. She's like a mother model, like she's my guru. I can say she's an amazing heart, body, mind, visionary. And I feel like being under her shadow here, I get better. I really become a better version of myself. And I feel super in place with the right people, doing the right thing. This is really great feeling after so many painful years being away from my home. I had to leave my country when the military intervention happened in 2016. We really had to escape because we didn't know who was safe or not. I was involved with a lot of social projects and political actions, and I didn't feel safe in that very moment. Things really went bad in my country. I don't know if they're better, but there's more breathing space, I feel, in me, in my family, in my friends. So it's good to be back, and to be back for proposing arts movement, but also healing through the somatic experiencing trainings. So I know that I'm a little drop in the ocean, but this drop feels content that she's in the ocean trying to do her best.
Yeah, I think this is another kind of a thread between us that, I was also born in the Middle East, and I think we both been living in Europe for many years, but there is a certain, when I meet you, I feel that there's a certain undercurrent, cultural current that brings us together, that in a way also make it clear, we are not from the places we are meeting. And I was just wondering, like, how are you doing with that? Like, with the sense of belonging and I know also what are the reasons beyond maybe what you've been telling about this military intervention, but there are other cultural reasons why, for me, and I think that you might also share that perspective, why it's easier to live in more Northern Europe or the west part of Europe. But how does it affect you, this living in this in between? Okay, I'm not from here, but I feel more comfortable here, although I'm not from here.
Yeah. Ooh, it's a very complex topic, no? And as I listen to you, I feel a constriction in my stomach and I need to breathe. And I'm like, where is the ground? Where am I situated? Huh? Where is my home? Like, I know my home is my body, and I have been cultivating that for years to find the stability. I think we are not for no reason in dance and somatics. I think that's part of the finding home. And I come from a privileged part of my country. I come from the West Coast. I grew up with a middle-class family. We had difficult times, but I grew up in abundance compared to many of the other people in my country. So even in my culture, in my country, I knew I was different and privileged since I was growing up. We had some helpers that they were coming from different parts of the country. Their stories were different. I had some friends, Kurdish friends, Armenian friends, Jewish friends. I was growing up with a sense of what does it mean to be a minority? Although I didn't maybe know cognitively, I could feel it in the space. So I come from a very mosaic of cultures, no? In the land called Anatolia, which is called Turkey. It is in the nature of this land and its neighbors, which is one of them is Israel, the Middle East, that there's a lot of moving. There's always migration. There's always war. I grew up with war. There was Iran-Iraq war, then the Gulf War, and this and that. Up there, we know the Crimea, like it's Bulgaria, and we have the thing with Greece, the Cyprus, like the war as a word, military as an entity was always in my life, and almost to the point that it got normalized, and almost to the point that it was celebrated. It's good that we have the military because we have to protect our land, I really took it for granted since I was till I was to the university at the age of 20 or something. And then there was this awakening when I was studying sociology that there's something wrong in here. This is not the norm. And many countries don't have it the way we do. There's this baseline of survival that we have to survive, we have to protect. And it really diffuses into your cells. There's this rigidity. However, there is this conflict in the culture that it's so fluid. There is this sense of humor. I mean, how else can you survive, no? So there's this kind of mocking all the time, taking it not too serious. Nothing is certain. So, and I'm just really making really overgeneralizations here. Of course, there's so many different aspects of it, but I think I, in my own self, have this rigidity and military discipline or like success orientation, survival orientation. I mean, I grew up in Izmir, but I moved to Istanbul when I was 18 and lived in Istanbul 23 years. I never once had one job. I was like, for a while, I was, after I finished my master's in sociology, I realized that I cannot survive in academia. I didn't like the power dynamics there. I said, okay, then I have to go into private sector. What can I do? And I was really searching for a long time. I needed to be creative. I always was in arts and movement in my life. But my family decided that I become an intellectual, not an artist, when I was growing up. So I was sent to dance school. I did ballet and this and that, sports. But no, that was a hobby. No, that was not the mainstream. So I had to go back to the university, achieve like high rank universities. I went to the first 1,000 I was in, passed all the centralized exams. So I had to prove I'm an intellectual for my family, and I understand the reason, because it's really difficult to make a life in Turkey as an artist or as a artisan, even like the service sector, the carpentry, the art, like they're really underrated. There's this class issue also, low class, middle class. Like middle class behaves like this, goes to these schools, does this kind of thing, wears this kind of, like it's cliche, but it's there. And when I started traveling when I was in the university, I didn't see that in Europe. I had friends who didn't go to university where I could have intellectual conversations. They were carpenters, but we could really share something else. And I was like, wow, but this is really not the case in my country. Another thing, I think what made me more comfortable traveling, not only West, everywhere, it generated more curiosity in me, and I could meet people, but not the social strata, social roles that they were defined. I could really meet the person, the human. It really generated more curiosity in me. And then I could go back and be more curious about myself and shed my skins of identities.
What do you mean by that? Meet more the human. I'm asking because, like, for example, for me, I have the feeling many times that when I go to a festival and then I meet people kind of out of their normal life where they are relaxed and I can dive into conversation and take the time. So sometimes I have the feeling, we can really be present with each other. But then I also feel like, but I want to meet them when they are impatient, dragging their kid when they are late to work. Like, so like, what is it for you? Like or what did you mean by that?
Yes, I think on one aspect was what you said. I was lucky because I allowed myself to travel and live with the locals, even when I was in a festival bubble, let's say, or like I could really meet. I love traveling and I love meeting people, and I don't like being a tourist. I like to be immersed in the local life of people. As you said, I want to see them with their kids, or like where do they eat, what do they cook, or do they take the local transport, or are they in their car, which roads they take, which kind of neighborhoods they choose to cross, no? So I tried to have this was a need, I think, these transitional moments before an event and after an event that if I was invited to teach somewhere, I could really connect to the locals. Or like my father was laughing at me like, but you have friends everywhere? Because when I go like, oh, I'm in Slovenia, I'm staying with a friend. Oh, I'm in Malaysia, I'm staying with a friend. Are they really your friends? Like, who are these people that you're staying with all the time? Huh? But I really feel I did make friends because I did not expect any standard of life when I met these people. Like, I know in Turkey, I have a lot of friends who would not live under the conditions that I live, the spaces, the rooms, the hotels or houses that I stayed. They would feel uncomfortable because they come from middle class. And thanks to my family culture, I did not grow up like this. I am able to feel comfortable in any infrastructure, let's say, so that I can meet the people. That's where what I'm talking about. Like, I think the habitus is one of the identities that really, like, oh, I have my, this is a books, this is the artful, space. No, this is a middle class house. No? Or I could be just in front of a concrete wall and there would be nothing in front of me. If it was the case that I was maybe a few weeks ago in one of the houses of another friend who is poor, but who is really doing anything and everything to be able to dance and connect to herself and have spiritual practice and does a lot of social work. She's a social activist trying to help Ukrainians at this moment, at this day and age, very precarious times. For her, it's not important to have art or books, but she's in life helping people. So, and if you speak to her, maybe her values are different than the person's values that I stay with now. And if they come together, they wouldn't agree. But I personally find common denominators with both of them. That is for me the meeting the human, I think. This is like, and I think it's meeting myself, meeting myself. I like the multiplicity I am. I can, and I am all of them. I think there is no I. Huh? I become a version of Defne with you in this moment. In 1 hour later, I turn to my teacher and I become another Defne. And both are true, although they may be conflicting with each other. This I like.
So then, okay, just a follow-up question. So then how do you relate to integrity? Like, okay, because one can interpret it, what you're saying, as kind of like, I can act and I can be with this person however it suits to be with. So what is the difference between this multiplicity and like how does it relate to authenticity then? If you have this.
For me, all of them are me. I'm not acting. That's where the integrity is. I am not acting against my will or my comfort or my values. I would say values because I don't believe in principles. Principles change. Like, I cannot promise you anything because under these circumstances, I can be this. But tomorrow, if there's bombs going on in my neighborhood, I will not promise that I'll be discomfortable or talking, because my nervous system is going to react differently. It's not only about personality, principles, or no, we are walking nervous systems, and I act and react in different ways under different circumstances also. So thanks to the trauma healing work, I'm more able to relate to people as reacting nervous systems than personalities or identities or characters. Oh, under these circumstances, he's becoming really aggressive. What is my responsibility to help him to feel more safe so that we can really meet in the authentic place? And in my integrity, I think, what is my core? What I seek now is, of course, safety and comfort in myself. And if I am feeling it in my body, in myself, I know that I can open up my heart and my perception to what's going on in the space. Of course, I'm not fully, I'm not naive. If there is buzzing things around me that I don't feel comfortable, or there's my interpretation of this person is selfish, or this person is this. Of course, I am a human being. I have these interpretations. I take distance. I dance around. But I want to keep my heart open. I want to be curious about this person. And sometimes this makes me decide, thank you very much. It was nice meeting you. I'm out of here. That is also authentic meeting, no? To say, I don't want to meet you. Goodbye. It's a meeting, real authentic meeting. I met you in the boundary. This is where contact comes in, no? The boundaries are not to separate us. We can only meet in the boundaries. We need the boundaries. Like you have children, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You have to have the boundaries. You need to bounce from back or just meet there. But we need, if it goes there, it's problematic. If it's too distant, we are not relating. How do we limbo? How do we dance in this zone?
Yeah.
It's the most rich zone, no? In the ecotone. It's in the ecology also. There's where these different habitats, different plant formations meet. The transitional space is the most rich place where there is no agreement, but
maybe it's a difference between dissolving a boundary and transcending a boundary.
Meeting in the boundary.
I'm intrigued to ask you something else than what I planned to ask you.
Let's go.
It's something that when we met in Italy, I kept hearing you saying this sentence. And I heard it now again, and I want to dive into that. You said, I see people more as a walking nervous systems and not as personalities. So maybe let's dissect that a little bit. What do you mean by that? And then what's the difference, or how they inform one another? What's the relationship between the nervous system and the personality? So, yeah.
I am not an expert to answer this, but I can share my version. Maybe I can try to share my version on this. When I say nervous system, if you think of a human integrity, let's say, it has different windows to or pieces that bring it together. No, we are sensing bodies. We have all the muscle, organ, fascia, the nervous system. There's nerve ends reaching out, so we are sensing. No, there's sensations. But then we have the capacity of imagination. We also like when you say you're excited, how do you know you're excited? Oh, I feel a constriction in my heart and I feel butterflies in my stomach. So there's imagery, no? Or a memory comes in, when I was a child, I remember I was jumping on the trampoline. That symbolizes the excitement for me, no? So there's memories as images in our being. So, and we relate consciously and unconsciously to the present moment through these lenses. Our sensations, memories, images are what are in our basket. But then we also have habits of movement. No, there is gestures, there is express movement and not express movement. Also, there's things that want to move, that keeps us taking space in the world. And then we have our emotions, the affectivity. We're walking affects. No, there's a lot of colors and shades there. And then there's the brain, there's the cortex, there's the meaning making. And some of us are more prone to one window than the other. Like we dancers or somatic practitioners, maybe it's our gift, but also can become a burden that we are super sensitive, or I can really feel every little muscle and vertebra moving in me, but I use this not to feel any emotion. Whenever I'm in trouble, I'm like, oh, I feel my body and but I don't want to feel my sadness. I don't want to feel my anger. So this model is coming from somatic experiencing, how we work with working with a traumatized or stressed body, mind, being. So we try to get through these windows and see if we can have a balance of these. Like, can I still sense my body, but be aware of my emotions, embody my emotions, and resolve certain energies that are not resolved in the past or in the present stressful moment, so that it doesn't affect my movements or behaviors or relations with other people. Therefore, the map of the meaning, like, oh, he's shouting at me all the time, can turn into, oh, he's angry and he's shouting. And actually, he's not shouting at me. He's shouting at everyone. Then I can create a distance and relate and compose my life with another mindfulness consciousness. No? So when you see someone as a nervous system in this model, you can really start to create distance to the different aspects and create a new meaning, so that you can get new information, maybe more phenomenological way of relating to things rather than judgmental expectations. No. Like, I think of Nancy in this moment, like Nancy Stark-Smith, when we sit in the opening circle, like, can you look at everyone as if you're looking at a flower? When you look at a flower, you don't expect anything. You don't judge them. You don't say, oh, it's a aggressive flower. She has these expectations from, you just look, it's yellow, there's purple dots, there's the green leaves. You just define it. So for me, when I think of it as a nervous system, I say, like, what is there now? She's moving her hands. She looks like there seems to be some anger. I am interpreting it's anger, but maybe she's super excited and vulnerable, and it shows as anger. I don't know. So I'm curious and I'm just observing. I'm in another field. I don't know that much, but I know nonviolent communication is trying to do that also, like observe and define and then reflect what is your need, what is their need, But
wait, so
that's another.
So yeah. Just to follow up. So then what's the real, okay, if we have the nervous system that, like get information from the world, from our imagination, and then it ends up with a certain we end up reacting. So where is agency in that? Like where is the personal agency in that? Because if we are just something that reacts, then it's a very deterministic view. But so where is the place where, as an individual, or how do you come out of that cycle of reaction?
Now we can go into many other, like all the way to spirituality and the self versus myself. But I think if you think of the old model of the triune brain, like the limbic brain and the reptilian brain and the neocortex, like I think the reaction is really coming from the reptilian brain. We need to be safe. There's this fight and flight. We are really like, or we freeze. There's this kind of level of reacting and relating. And then the emotional interpretation of things, the hormones also is there. And the neocortex is where we know what we know what's happening. We think, we know, and we give meaning to things, and we compose our life. We even compose ourselves. We say, I am this. So this comes from, but then this is again a gift and a burden. If you really stick to that, then it's etiquette, like it's like stickers. No, this is this is I am this, you are this, and then what happens? That's why, of course, we have personalities. Of course, there's the biological genetic makeup, but also the culture and the environment affecting us. There's the epigenetic. Like, it's super complex. It's not like, okay, we're just physiology. I'm not saying that, of course. But for me, what really helps, and I know that sometimes as I said, like, okay, I can understand there's probably these dynamics. You may have childhood traumas, but you are who you are now, and I am not able to relate to you. I cannot be friends with you because you feel not good or dangerous to me, let's say. So I'm not I'm not walking like a Florence Nightingale or like a therapist. Oh, I'm empathizing with everyone. You're a nervous system. Of course, I know that there is some. I don't know. It's a very difficult topic to talk. I feel it, I live it, but to express it in words, it's difficult. I'm realizing thanks to you now. How do I live? What do I mean by when I say? Yeah, it's beautiful to be confused in this moment. I have a gap.
Yeah, we can take a moment to think, to feel.
You know, it's not.
Maybe I can share a little bit like what I hear and how I where, because it definitely meets me. I mean, I've just came back from a weekend. Maybe I can share with you. I've come back from a weekend retreat where I was going into a very deep process of observing myself in kind of a healing setup, and yeah, and talking about belonging, I found I met a space within myself that I realized that I have a certain pattern that I distance myself from my environment in order not to feel belong, in order to feel a part. And that this part is kind of very deeply also connected to certain shames, lack of self-love, and other mechanisms. And
this is your interpretation. This is your post-rationalization of what you have lived in the past? Or
no, that was embodied experience during the practice of like really experiencing this connection between these things. And then when I think about what you're saying about the nervous system, then it makes me feel like, yeah, there are certain things that are almost like certain knots, like as if I take it as kind of an imagery, as if our system has certain loopholes and certain pathways that are so ingrained and repeated that when the moment there is a certain signal running in the system, it just funnels into a certain thing. Sure. And then it's like, oh, again, here I am in a room distancing myself from, and in this weekend, it was very, very present because the environment was the complete opposite. There was all the attempt from everybody who was present in the space to make sure that everybody feels as welcome as possible and as supported as possible, genuinely with heart, with an open heart, not as an idea. And nevertheless, my experience was, for many hours, was I don't belong. Everybody feels very comfortable, and I'm the only one. So these kind of stories, but then still I found something, and I cannot explain it for myself in words. Something that could see it and then say, I don't have to be that pattern anymore. I don't have to be this nervous system. And maybe that's
your meaning changes. This is the because I think what's happening there is that this interpretation, okay, there's something wrong and I don't belong here. It comes out of a strategy, a more primitive strategy of retreating and taking care of yourself. And then when you're doing that, it's saving you from a certain condition in the past. But then you also give this meaning, attaches to it. It's a coupling, no? Retreating yourself and feeling immediately, I don't belong here, is coupled, overcoupled. So through these works, what you do is that, okay, you start having this consciousness, awareness, and questioning, is this really true? Or I feel my system retreating, okay. But is this really true? The meaning, is this really true that I don't belong here? Everybody is welcoming. You start to see something else. And if you feel safe enough, this strategy is challenged. This is like, but maybe I can just get a few more steps closer and taste and test. Am I safe here? Is this okay? They're still smiling at me. Oh, she's really curious about me. So you start to be aware. In a more protective mode, there's this tunnel vision. No, you don't see anything. You're really close. But if there's safety and openness, you start to perceive. Your nervous system starts to regulate. You're not in this fight-flight mode. You can really get into a more parasympathetic perception, let's say, and then you can start seeing the potential positive or comfortable or different meanings arise in this.
Yeah,
this is the dance of the mind, the cortex, and the limbic and the reptilian aspects of our being. No.
Yeah. And for me, it felt, and I think that every time that I kind of go into such spaces, it feels like that the work, there is a certain rational analysis post experience that I can say in words and share with you, but the actual in the moment, it's not that I'm constructing a new idea and then I say, let's believe in this new idea. Just something happens on a physical embodied level.
Totally.
And
this is the word.
Yeah, and you know, it really gives a question. Like, I really like the perspective. I started using this term also. I heard it from Nita Little, one of the founders of contact improvisation, using the word body mind instead of body and mind, because it really feels like, maybe these thoughts that I have and consciousness, it really translate into matter, into the kind of cells that the nervous system is being built, and vice versa. And then the cells has a certain quality of material that informs the way I can think and how to unplanter this mess.
Totally. And actually, that's why I'm a big fan of somatic experiencing and more embodiment, body-oriented psychotherapy practices, is that this is exactly the thing, like with somatic experiencing, and it is very much informed from Eastern philosophy, mindfulness, focusing, like you really slice down to the moment and attend to what's happening in the body and get the signals like, wow, I feel the constriction in my stomach. When I stay with that constriction, what is there? Oh, I feel anger. Okay, when I feel anger, what happens to the rest of my body? How do I perceive the world? And then when I really dive deep, it can be a stressor in the moment, but I can also tap into some memories that, wow, when my brother hit me when I was 5 years old, I was super angry, but because I was so little, I couldn't express that, you know? So it could be even an accumulation of different sequence of events in my life that really made that a little rigid strategy that's helped me until then. But with growing and becoming an adult, or like having these mindfulness practices, you're like, does this strategy help me still? Like when I get angry, maybe I explode, but I feel guilty, and then so how do I be aware of what's happening? Some of the strategies I don't need to change, but if I'm aware that those strategies are not serving me now, I know, and I experienced it myself, there's ways to go thin slice and deconstruct past strategies and develop new ones, which means new neurological pathways. And then new meanings, new relations, new personalities. I started saying that I'm an upgraded version of myself, no? This is the base of my upgrade. This is really like, I am more, I can contain better my activation, my different emotions, challenging moments in my life, including really physical, like bombing in my neighborhood. No, I had to do a lot of therapy sessions to really decouple my fear from the space, from the sound, from the memories that are there. Like even my PhD, I had to write my PhD in that context. No, I could not read my PhD for years. I couldn't touch that book for years because of that coupling of the memory of the leaving my country, the bombing in my neighborhood. Like there was a lot of things. No, so it took a while to open more space and relate to the aspects, and continue from there, take my PhD at hand and maybe write an article about my research now after 10 years, no? Or 6 years, 7 years. It takes time, it takes mindfulness, it takes awareness, it takes the conversation of the body mind, as you said. And that's where the dance comes in. We were talking beforehand, no? Like for me, where there's movement, there's life. Then there's flow, there is change is possible. That's why I think for me it's really interesting and super important to bring movement into therapeutic interventions, life, even in my family. You know, like, okay, let's go for a walk after lunch. No, let's do the talking while we're walking. So there's flow. We don't get rigid and heavy with ideas, with images, with emotions.
Yeah, I definitely want to open that thing and talk about contact, but I still have one thing that I want to develop from the previous conversation. So, and I'm curious to hear a perspective. So what I hear is from what you're saying is, okay, so So basically, our nervous system generates a certain reaction that can translate into a certain sensation. This sensation provoke an emotion, and this emotion, we might place it a certain meaning in our mind and then react based on this kind of process. But by observing, we can decouple it, and then slowly maybe we are not trapped in those responses. But what is your then relationship to emotions in that regard? Because sometimes I feel like that certain emotions, like, like they really justify an action, and certain emotions, or like it can be even the same emotion. Sometimes when I'm angry, I feel like, look, just take a moment to observe yourself, stop acting like a child, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes when I'm angry, I'm saying like, hey man, there is a serious problem here. I need to act. And so how do you do that process for yourself in relation to emotions? Because at the end, they are not representing anything objective, and we do have to have a dance there. So
I think what happens there is my answer is going to come from another therapeutic modality called integral somatic psychology, which is all about embodying emotions. Raja Selvam is the founder, and he just wrote a book on that. I'm curious to read it.
What's the name again?
But I know his Raja Selvam. Okay. And integral somatic psychology, ISP, is the modality, and I'm trained and I'm assisting in his trainings. And every time I train with him, what I learn is the importance of being able to stay with an emotion and really embody and let it take over, but not overactivate you, that you lose your sense. Like sadness or anger can really take you out of your body, no? Even like you lose control. We want to be able to stay with one emotion. And for example, in the example you gave, you said, you talk to yourself and you said, come on, don't be a child, don't get... But actually what you're doing there is sweeping the anger under the carpet. And instead, in these modalities, what we do is that it's okay to be angry, but before you take action or reaction or meaning, or judging yourself is one of the meanings, no? Like, can you stay with the emotion and let it be? Okay, how do you know you're angry? Oh, I feel my ears getting really hot. Huh? Okay, we want to not the energy to go to your ears. Can you feel your shoulders, your arms? Can you allow the anger to really spread to your body? Like when you're in Turkey, we have this concept called imece, which means in villages, for example, we are going to gather olives. No, you don't only gather the olives in your garden. All the neighbors come, we collect it together, and the next day we come and gather your pomegranate together. No, or we come and build your house. So it's a collective supporting system. So for me, this is like that. If I feel my anger in my head, I'm calling my rest of my body for imece to come and support, and we can carry it together so that it doesn't become super overwhelming and activated thing for one body part that calls for an explosion or implosion. And it's an acceptance and validation of emotions. Like, it's okay to be angry. In our cultures, we know how destructive can anger be, and we're super afraid of it. But anger actually is boundary setting when it's really constructive and peaceful. I don't want to lose my anger. Thanks to my anger, I'm here. It's assertive energy, no? But I want to be able to manage it in such a way that I don't destroy myself and others around me, and I can construct a new reality. It doesn't have to be the pink reality, but it's at least not a destructive reality. No, it's like, okay, this is here. We can shake hands and leave. But I know that I have this, and it's a valid emotion. It's a constructive emotion. Every emotion is there for a reason, and I can track it in my body. I know. How do I know I'm sad? I know it through my body. How do I know I'm super happy and joyful? I feel it in my body. And when I'm aware of it and I'm tuned with it and I'm not trying to push it away or just cover it with, for example, when I'm really vulnerable and I feel deprived of something, I shift to anger. So these two emotions are coupled. But if I start embodying my anger, it kind of relaxes, and I can then tap into my vulnerability. And I was like, whoa, I feel actually like really sad there. But not to feel sad, I was supporting myself with an easier emotion for me to what I learned in my family, maybe, because we learn also through models. like emotions are not only coming from like we learn, we have models. When this happens, you are validated, or you have the right to be angry, because if you have angry models in your family, you know how to be angry. But if you feel nobody is vulnerable, nobody is allowing themselves to stay with sadness and vulnerability, you don't know that, you don't learn that. But if you can really work with this and really deconstruct and decouple these emotions, maybe you build a better capacity to feel vulnerable. And when you're living in France or in Austria and you feel like, I don't belong here, and you don't start projecting this vulnerability over coupled with the anger and start, they're racist, they don't want me, nah, nah, nah. You can just say like, I feel alone, I feel different. And then you say, actually, I am different. And it's okay. What do I do with this now? How can I seek help, support if I can? Or I realize that maybe it's time for me to go back home, because even those shit that I named shit were better than feeling this loneliness. Or I find another home, or I find a different activity that will make me feel less vulnerable, even I stay in the same different culture. So then I can, my meaning map changes, therefore my response changes. That's my reality. I had a very difficult moment at the second year of my time in France. Although I was in a very beautiful family, I had a lot of good friends. The cultural differences or the functioning was so different that I felt lost, and I got really sick. But my international family, reaching from social media, sending me recipes and this and that, I felt like, wow, maybe I don't feel really home in this geography, but I am home in this planet, allowed me to stay in that geography and find better connections in that geography also. But now I move. I got resourced, and I'm able to name things, and it opens more space. And I'm more at peace with my difficulties. This also goes into the conflicts we were talking about at the beginning. No, we can have a conflict, we can have a disagreement, but I can still feel that there's a good intention to stay together, and I don't overgeneralize because I'm activated that he doesn't agree with me and I want to be right. No, he doesn't agree with me. I still love him, and we can move on.
Yeah, I think it's for me that's the kind of the highest perspective that one can embody. Like when I think about it, like, yeah, I recently there's a professor of evolutionary psychology that I follow. His name is Gad Saad. He's a Lebanese Jews who ran away from this Lebanese civil war into Canada. And he talks a lot about freedom of speech, and he said that he will defend the right of a Holocaust denier to tell their perspective, because he believes that it's a more constructive way to deal with that rather than trying to shut it down. And that's a very kind of a brainy idea, but when I see it kind of in what we are conversing now, it really feels that like, yeah, it's really like in a way, if we think about freedom of speech from kind of the nervous system perspective, it's really the ability to stay in a place where you are really attempting to decipher where the other person really is, and not to combat with them. And it's a beautiful thing to do, because in a way, when you said like, yeah, I'm here on this planet, in a way, that's kind of the easiest thing to cultivate belonging. I don't remember who I read saying it, but the sentence was like, I belong since I'm here.
You said it in one of your workshops in Italy when we were teaching. By being, you belong.
Yeah, I repeated that sentence, that I took it from somebody that I heard, that like, if I'm in the space, I'm present, so then I belong, because otherwise I will not be here. But you are already. But yeah, it's But this is, I think, something I wanted to say, and you're encouraging me to say, not to forget it. It's because when you say, if I attend to the other from this perspective, it's easier. But what you're doing is not only attending to the other as they speak, you're attending to yourself. And you can also say, wait, Matan, it's too much. Can we give a pause? What you're saying is, I feel that it's triggering me. I need to breathe. It's difficult for me to take in.
So I do my work and I help you to do your work, and it's a constructive mutual work, no? It's a collective responsibility. I really don't believe that I have to do my work to feel better in this world. You have to help me, I have to help you. This is the base of my teaching also.
Wait,
in this space.
Repeat this sentence, please. Sorry.
I don't think that it's only my work to feel better or to achieve something about myself in this. You need to help me and I need to help you to be better version of ourselves. And it's a collective responsibility. If it's the simplest revelation I had was this: I'm a fast system. I move fast, I think fast, I do things a lot and fast. And a lot of slow people feel inferior and feel failure when they're around me, no? I'm the first one to reach the line, and the teacher shakes my hand and we move on to the next chapter. This is the system. This is the capitalist system's education system. No. But I've realized at one moment in my life, it's also my responsibility to slow down and let them come along. And because they're super creative and they have different qualities, but they're just slow. This is one example. We can talk about. So I need to slow down, and maybe they find ways to catch up, but it's together. And this is a metaphor for so many other things. For example, as we are speaking, it's my responsibility as I'm speaking to kind of say, is what I'm saying triggering him? Do I choose my words right? Because you are maybe doing a lot of effort to listen to that anti-Holocaust conversation, but you are doing a lot of effort to do that. Okay, I'm going to stay, I'm going to be open, freedom of speech, but it's a lot of work. So this person has to do some work so that you can do your work also. Because we are mutual. We need validation, we need witnessing, we need feedback. We are not designed to be soloist, as the capitalist system tells us. You're going to survive your and you're going to put your flag up there. No, it doesn't work like that. At least it never worked like that for me.
Yeah,
I failed my successes.
Speaking of triggering, being triggered, currently, because I'm more, let's say, my circle of colleagues and where my kids go to kindergarten, it's a little bit more left leaning, and nowadays it's very easy to put this flag, it's the capitalistic system. And for me, I experienced a trigger from that, a conservative trigger, I will call it.
Yeah, it's an overgeneralization.
Yeah, of course.
No? I also get shortcuts.
And then when you were speaking, I was thinking what is this thing with individualism? And I think that and what is this? What is the relation that you pointed out? Okay, when I speak, it's my responsibility to look. It's my responsibility to pay attention if what I'm saying is triggering. And I think that's for me, that's kind of to some degree a byproduct of capitalism. That we first, it's so for me the beauty in capitalism, because I do think that things needs to be reformed in our world. There is a lot of problems, but I think the thing that needs to be preserved is the notion that the individual is the smallest minority that needs to be protected first and foremost, and not the group, the individual. And from that point of view, that we protect the individual, then many individuals can go back and start feeding. And now how do you protect the individual? Yeah, the collective makes sure that each individual is fine. So there's some responsibility. And what you said now about that I need to be responsible to make sure that you're not being triggered. What I see in it is just that you ask from yourself to be aware of what your action carries in the world, but you're not saying, I'm responsible that you are being triggered. Because the fact that you're being triggered has to do with you. I can just pay attention to that. And I think that's a healthy thing to differentiate, because nowadays there is a lot of ideas that I hear around that, this term microaggression, that, okay, if I say something that made you feel offended and that came to you as a racist comment, therefore I'm racist. and then there is a certain coupling of the meeting point. It's like, okay, you're saying something, I respond to it, and we both have responsibilities, but it's not that my trigger is necessarily a point.
But there is a risk.
It's not my trigger is not necessarily pointing out to the objective action that you're doing. There is a place of interpretation there, and that's why dialogue is extremely important. And I love this little differentiation. It's like, yeah, how can I expand my awareness to be more in touch with the effect of my action in the world, regardless.
And not be defensive. If somebody says, but you what you said, what you did is doing this to me, not getting into this defense, but also because then you're like, okay, I'm still willing to understand what's happening there, helping you to understand that I don't immediately get defensive and say, but I didn't offend you, I'm not racist. It's like, okay, wow, what's happening there that you interpreted my moment of reflection or whatever as racist? What is there? Why? I'm curious. We don't, and this is the repair. I may have broken your heart or your bone, but I bring the cast with me. I'm sorry, I didn't want to break your leg, no? I didn't want to break your heart. I didn't want to trigger you. For me, that's the heart space. That's where I said at the beginning, like, I want to keep my heart open and my body open to this. Of course, I need to. The words that you used triggered me in this last chapter, no? Why do we need to protect? Of course, you and me, we know we need to protect ourselves. We come from a difficult geography. This is in the field. We grow up by protecting. Huh? Of course, it's in the nature of any being to protect itself. There's nothing wrong with protection. But if we start a relation or existence being on this planet from a protecting perspective, I collapse. I don't want to function from there. I don't want to think when I wake up, what am I going to protect myself with? Should I put makeup? Is this for... No, I just want to first open, but I want to be aware. I know there is dangerous things out there, and I want to be ready to protect myself when it's needed. I don't want to function from a protective place. I want to function from loving and trusting place, knowing that there is danger in nature and in culture. And I know the codes, I'm studying these codes. And of course, in different cultures, different geographies, different natural environments, it will be different. And I will fail. I hope I will have comrades who's going to teach me new strategies to survive the mountain in a snowy mountain when I come from a sunny beach, no? So I will have to learn different protective mechanism. And I trust we know how to protect ourselves. The body knows. But I want to cultivate more this awe, like, what is here? And then even in conflicting situations, I can be in awe, like, and I am like, how come he thinks like that? I was just talking about something joyful. He's now crying in front of me. What happened there, you know? Then if I'm in awe and I'm curiosity, I don't get into protection and defending. But I was trying to, and you made me like... It really shifts the behavior when you keep that. But for me, at least, it really comes from with embodying emotions. If I can stay with, but he misunderstood me, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, okay, he misunderstood me. It's not an easy place, because when my mom misunderstood me, she sent me to my room and punished me. But nobody's gonna punish me now. We're adults. He misunderstood me. What's happening here? Where's the ground? Okay, I'm misunderstood, but it's not the end of the world. Nobody's going to punish me. I don't need to protect myself. Tell me more about it, Matan. Why did you misunderstand me? I did not have any,
It's interesting for me to hear your reaction to this word protection. Yeah, because there is on one thing, like very, like I have maybe a bit more neutral relation to that. Mm-hmm. But I see what you're pointing, in the sense that, like, that there is a certain energy of condensation that comes with it. Like, okay, I need to close down rather than open up. And
it's beautiful. I'm gonna stop you with your kind understanding and use this as a moment of what we are talking about. I would say, wow. Thank you, Motan, for taking the time and the effort to try to understand my interpretation and giving it back to me, showing me your effort of trying to understand. Even if you're not going to agree with me at the end, I see your effort and I can relax. You see what I mean?
If you found so far the conversation meaningful, please consider to share the episode with others and click the like button. These small actions might seem meaningless, but they are the fuel that helps the podcast project to keep moving forward. Your attention and time is highly valued, and we would love to hear more about the insights you might have from listening to this episode. And please consider to subscribe to the channel to be notified for all future uploads. Yeah, I think it's a practice. It's a practice, and for me now, where it meets me is that when I started the podcast, and still I would say that, you know, I just started writing a short essay on that my default is the cognitive brain. I go immediately into the realm of ideas, and when I started the project, I saw it as an opportunity to listen to people and to hear different ideas and different perspectives. And where I am now, and that's also related maybe to the fact that I just came back from this weekend and I'm still in this more sensitive space with myself, that listening has, like any other action, has many, many layers. Listening to what? It's a little bit like when we say in dance, body awareness. What do you mean by body awareness? So the same with listening, like, okay, am I listening to your words and then back to my own thoughts that analyze the words and the meaning that it can carry? Or am I listening to my body sensation that comes the moment my nervous system reacts to the meaning of the sounds you're projecting into my headphone? Or I'm just listening to what? And I saw that my natural tendency is I hear an idea, I'm quick in analyzing, bam, and I come and I spit my response. And when you said when you told me, there was one particular moment where you gave me the reflection about about the anger and the child and like the thoughts that I gave towards my anger. And you say, yeah, but Matan, like, you're already putting it under the carpet. So immediately I had the response, no, I need to explain her that nobody here live that I'm acting like that, because that's not what I mean, you know, like this kind of
fancy. Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh wow, interesting, like what kind of a sensation it does in my chest this moment, knowing that something that I said took a certain interpretation and how it makes me feel, and just like relax into that and say and
it's your interpretation,
and see that like part of listening is also giving space to sensing your emotions, and that's a big topic for me personally, because I feel it like I have a good ability in difficult situations to stay centered and direct and act, and not to be hesitant. But on the other hand, which is very good for emergencies, you know, like you need to do something now. But in many situations, there is no emergency, and actually you can you can take the time, and maybe that's a little bit, you know, kind of also the collective trauma that I am circling around. You know, in Israel, everything is an emergency. Like you go to the supermarket, you come to the cashier, and it's like you're fighting to go be front of somebody in front of you, because it's like there is always an emergency that you need to battle through.
Yes. So just being aware of this creates the change. And taking time for me is, as I said, being a fast system. I mean, I'm sometimes ashamed of my CV. I look at it like, this is 5 lives, it's not 1 life. Why? Why did I kill I mean, I literally got sick, you know? Why did I have to do all that, you know? But there was reasons for that. I could only survive my dysregulated system, nervous system and life system, through doing a lot. And now for me, my personal, political, social claim is to slow down and taking time. And we're gonna give a residency during the IDOC symposium this summer with Marco. We call it Ma. And we're just going to create a gap, a space, timeless, spaceless, empty space where the researches or life potentials can unfold. In the Japanese culture, ma is like a pregnant nothingness. Like it's like space in between things, a potential to unfold that you don't know. Maybe we know this place when we're really bored. We don't know what to do. Poof, something opens up if we really allow that gap, no? So now I'm in this day and age in my life, I'm really curious to inquire this on a daily life basis and in my dance and movement research also. And I think contact improvisation allows us mindfulness that we're talking about, also meeting with the boundaries, negotiating different rhythms, different trajectories, different awarenesses, attention, no? Speeds of attention, as Nita would say. And for me, this is important now, like how, like it's not only slowing down, it's suspending things, no? Like letting things, like we had this moment in our conversation, like I was like, whoa, I'm losing it. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm even thinking, what I'm knowing. And then we'll give that space, and you took like that gap allowed you to take the conversation to another direction, no? So, and we are fast together, like, okay, but it's like, oh, when we don't do, can we just look at each other? I mean, when we did at the beginning, I was able to see the design, no, like the diagonal and the microphone, and then I start seeing things differently when I give this space and time.
I think what you're pointing out towards, if I would try to say it in words that would be familiar to me, I would say that's like kind of creative emergence. That's the power of that's actually evolution, creative spirit that comes out of the ability to rest in the gap, and then something new can be born. And I think that it's difficult to maybe to be there because maybe there's a certain sense of purposelessness or waste of time or like certain value judgment that comes into those moments. But I think that in the dance, like you brought contact improvisation, and it's something that I would like to start diving into. I think that in the dance, that's something that on a practical, I would say, observable level, you can see that it's that. You know, I'm dancing.
Yes.
I had a really wonderful experience this week. I'm teaching every Monday a study group of contact together with Yuli Gabor, another wonderful teacher. And I came and I had a plan what I wanted to do. I wanted to do with them like shoulder lifts, and because they're quite already advanced in their process, and I thought it's a good time. I already had it in the curriculum as a model that I will teach. And then I entered the space, and Yuli was teaching before me. She told me, yeah, we did a lot of spine undulation, and somehow they're in a very sensitive place and also emotionally. And then I came to start teaching, and I said, okay, I'm going to just ask them, how are they? And I asked, oh, guys, how are you? And then the first student who answered, he told me, Matan, how are you? I'm actually curious to hear how are you doing? And then I realized I didn't even ask myself, how am I doing? And I just came with this plan because, like, okay, life needs to go on. Even though I'm sensitive, we have to keep going. And then I just kind of had this moment of just looking at it and say, hey, you know what? Actually, I'm in a very sensitive place. I came from a weekend that I was crying a lot, and I'm like, oh my God, and then I realized, okay, let's just do something completely else. And we went into such a delicate exploration of waves and body surfing, and like really like, the most subtle mechanics of connections in the body, that at the end of the 1 hour and a half, we were all super energized and ready theoretically to do the shoulder lift. And it's just like that, like I see it over and over that, this lesson of that when that you pay a price by pushing. Sometimes it's necessary, okay, like shit hits the fan and there is no chance. You cannot have the privilege of choosing. As you say, like when the bombs are falling, you're not you're in a reactive space. But in most of the time, at least in peaceful countries, we have the possibility to choose. We just choose not to take the space.
But the choice is not necessarily always conscious choice. We are, as I was saying, we are products of our past also. Like if you grew up like this, it's really, it took me a long while, and I'm not very successful to learn to walk slow on the street. As you said, if I'm going to the supermarket, I'm almost running. And my friend who comes from France is like, but why are you rushing? I'm not rushing, I'm walking. You know? This is how I walk, because I walked all my life like this. So I don't know how to take in information, and because, as you said, it's always urgency, no? And why? Who knows why? Because it's the old nervous systems, this generation and past generations vibrating in the space. We are escaping. We're protecting. You know? This is what I said. When you're not in this protective mode, you're okay to take in more information and maybe tap into the more parasympathetic way of being. You're not always on the sympathetic action, no? So. And then when you're allowing that, it generates a different kind of energy and action. And the agency you were asking, I think, before is here. Like, yes, but you cannot blame someone for not being able to do it. Oh, but she's not doing the work. She's not taking action. She's not working. No, she's not able to do it now. But maybe there may be, some people will never get there, but some. And hopefully through our teachings, through sharing the dance, and I feel a lot of potential in contact improvisation teaching, because I can really integrate different modalities into it. Because it doesn't claim to be a pure form unless you're teaching the physical momentum, spiral techniques of contact. No, it's super permeable. I'm teaching constant improvisation lately. I'm not teaching contact improvisation. Of course, I'm teaching contact improvisation, but the base allows me to work with boundaries, constant work of Betty Martin, boundary work coming from somatic experiencing, self-awareness. So what am I doing? I'm actually cultivating self-awareness so that the people can take agency in confusing gap moments to decide, to understand what's happening to them, what's happening in the environment, in the dance, around the dance, and compose. I'm also, when I'm teaching constant in contact improvisation, I'm also using a lot of Julian Hamilton, Daniel Lepkov material of composing the space, because we need compositional skills to use that energy, to understand the dynamics and have the agency to say, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to propose that. With the telescoping awareness of what is happening here, what is happening there, then I know I have the agency to choose this or this and respond. And therefore the individual is not disappearing. Individual is there, realizing its potential in and for and with the collective. We are together. I cannot be me without you talking to me in this moment.
Yeah, no, this I'm fully with you on that. And I think, there's also like it's obvious that it's also obvious from a utilitarian point of view that we are dependent on many others. And if everybody is just living on an island, working on the computer, and nobody makes food, and we all die, of course. And but there is something that, like you start, we shared the space teaching in this contact silence retreat in Italy, which was very intense few days. And I wanted to ask you, within when I give an introduction to people who are interested in my work, I always I mostly explain that my perspective on dance, that it has like three main legs, which are like the craft, which is everything around technique and fitness, the social aspect, which is anything, all the stories about between the group and the individual, and the social dynamics, and then the artistic, creative aspects. And I said that around it, there's things that are floating around that are not in the center, but they are present. And one of them is like spirituality. I would say like coaching and therapy. But I also give a disclaimer that I'm not a therapist, I'm not a coach, and I'm not a spiritual teacher. But when I was teaching next to you, I felt that your therapist character is more was in the room more often. And I wanted to ask you about it. Like,
how do you define my therapist hat? Could you give me your perception of it? Then I can relate more clearly to what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think that I have a good word. Like for me, like what I sense the main difference between us as a kind of a starting point for the strategy of teaching is I felt that for you it was very important, again, it's my interpretation, that in any moment to have a look that everybody feels comfortable in the space, that nobody is kind of, fell off. So like making sure like to be aware of the boundary around the group. Did anybody fell out and they are out of the space, or they are like, and me, my strategy is kind of to sense where is the individual boundary of comfort, and to kind of give a little bit of a lean to each person until they can gently fall off their comfort zone and explore a new territory, which creates a very, very different, we had these many moments that I would say something, okay, we do this, and then you say like, wait, but is everybody comfortable with that? And I'm like, hey, no, you don't ask them. I want them to go there even if they are not comfortable. And for me, I felt it like that this care that you brought to the space, for me, I associated it to somebody who has a therapeutic perspective on the space that knows, okay, wait, if they don't feel care, if they are not feeling cared, how would their nervous system be able not to respond? So like this kind of perspective, that's my interpretation. I don't know if you, how do you resonate with that?
It resonates, it rings some bells. It's true, I think, in a way, what you said, that it is really important for me to create a safe and secure environment that everybody feels okay. One of our friends with Emma Biget, Antonio Livingston, has this beautiful motto that with Marco Pellizzari, we also want to make it our motto for the MA propositions, is like, you can do, don't do, modify, witness, retreat, report, reset. This is a freedom for me. I propose something, but I want you to have the agency to say, no, I don't want to do this. But even I put that motto at the title of my workshop, let's say, I want them to find their learning edge, as Nita Little would say, like, what is your learning edge? I am with you on pushing the limits, but I don't want them to not be mindful when they're crossing their boundaries. I don't want them to cross their boundaries. I want them to expand their boundaries as a learning edge. Like, whoa, it's difficult, but I can be with it. I don't want anyone to tolerate something. Tolerance is after the boundary, like, whoa, I have to tolerate it. No, I'm at it, I'm with it, and it's challenging. I don't feel comfortable, but I'm asking myself, is it okay to not feel comfortable? Can I manage this? I don't want to do it because Defne told me to do it. Defne invited me to be aware when I'm getting uncomfortable and make a choice there. Because from the trauma work, what happens in a traumatic situation, everything is too fast. I don't have agency. I don't have the choice making. I become a victim of the situation. It's a rupture. What we want to rebuild, as you said, in a therapeutic environment, to fix that rupture, to be aware when things are happening and how can I protect myself in that sense or recover from that. And I want to bring this mindful focus that, okay, this is the moment it started to become too much for me. In a maybe traumatic situation, I did not have the choice and the time, but now in the dance, I can create this space, and time to say, is this okay for me? Lingering in the maybe. If you go into the consent language, is it a yes? Is it a no? Is it a maybe? If it's a maybe, what do I need? Do I need more information? Do I need more time? Do I need more space? Do I need more people or less people? What do I need to make a clear decision? Is it a yes or a no? So this maybe is the gap, no, for me. It's like, and then can I stay in that maybe? Is it okay for me and my partners? Can we cultivate patience for this? Like, I don't know. Yes. Or I don't know. I'll keep in the no. Because if I don't know, I'm not going to hurt myself and others. Because what happens if I don't know my yes, I cannot find my no. So for me, in my teaching, when I say, wait, is there anybody, because we go into the touch practices in contact, no? For years, I just want to start with, have a moment and sense in your body, is there any part in this moment that doesn't want to be touched now? And if I know I don't want my boobs to be touched, and I declare it to the space, And I know that an accident will happen and somebody will cross my boots, but I will know that I don't want, and I know I can have my bouncing away from it and not fall victim. Oh, but I didn't want. No, if I know I don't want to be touched, I can take my agency more serious. So it's cultivating this agency. It's not ripping the agency away and taking and mothering and, oh, we're so much caring. I've been there and I had my nice slaps from when I was a younger teacher teaching at the university in the conservatory in Istanbul. There was a student of mine, they were like, but you're not our mother. Why are you like this? I was like, whoa. This is a beautiful feedback. It was very difficult to take. Thankfully, I was doing art therapy training then, and one of my supervisors was really giving amazing feedback for me. It's like, don't take it personal, but study what's happening there. And I was like, yes, I was taking too much care to the point that I was stealing their agency away from them. Hopefully I learned better that I want to create a caring and safe space with options possible, invitations that are challenging, but people know that they can say no at any moment.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think again there's few things that it comes in mind. One thing that we were talking about when I was in Italy about this personality bias and how for certain people it's very clear that at any point they are responsible for the situation, and in certain people they've been ingraining different mechanism that they are looking for somebody to say if it's okay or not. So like that there is a certain break in this mechanism of self-agency. And and I was also thinking with myself, because now during the weekend I found myself in a moment that I was so much full with shame and with I couldn't look in the people's eyes, and a good friend of mine was sitting next to me, and he told me, Matan, look, and he said it in a very clear and not judgmental voice, try to look in people in the eyes, don't disconnect. And then another person came to me, because my posture, I was a little bit like, kind of dropping the chest and leaning forward, kind of like somebody took the air out of me, and somebody just came, put one hand on my sternum, one hand on my scapula, and just helped me to sit straight. And I was really at the edge of my comfort zone there, but it expanded now. I managed to contain that. And then I told to my friend, hey, thank you for helping me. He told me, hey, thank yourself. and there is a certain truth in both. I do need to thank myself. I did it. I passed through this moment, but there was also the support. And I think that's something, maybe my bias as a teacher is like, hey, I'm challenging you, go ahead, face it with courage and confront it. But then it's like, where do I place the hand on the chest and on the sternum?
Beautiful. As
a teacher? And I think that as you say, like the opposite, let's say pathology is that I always hold you, and also when you're ready to walk, I'm like, don't worry, I'm with you. It's like
totally.
And that's why it was for me very nourishing to meet you, because I felt, well, we are really coming from kind of maybe opposite bias or like opposite strategy, and it created a certain friction on a practical level. But this friction was very productive for me to become aware of the automatic assumption I bring into the space. And
I think once you create that environment, I think that was the beauty of collaborating with you in Italy, that once we could create the container, we could really go to the edges that you were proposing. I was super happy to go there, like then we could trust and really go, no? It's like, again, in the trauma work, we use this term titration. We don't immediately go to the center of the vortex. We, like the leaf, it falls first and it travels and then it goes into the vortex. No, we just become this leaf, taste it, go out, taste it, go out. And the more we work with it, the potential expands. So the vortex is not too strong. And then we can ride the vortex in a more peaceful, grounded, embodied way and learn from it instead of, like some people really zoom out of the learning spaces because it's too much for them, or the touch is too much for them, the sensations are too much, the intimacy that the contact environments bring is too much. and they get really confused. This is where I came in. I don't like rules and regulations that are jam spaces that point the finger and seek for predators. This is the protection. Huh? Me, I'm really curious of how to empower people, train people to be aware of their edges and limits, and then they can recognize when things go wrong and name it and confront, have conflicts, and hopefully the conflicts will resolve and nobody will feel victim or predator, and we can have more people staying in the field, dancing and co-creating, and not having this shaming and guilting, gaslighting environments in the space.
Yeah, the biggest feeling that I came after the collaboration and this whole retreat is that I don't think that as a collective we have a clue what we are doing in the field of contact improvisation. I think it's just like, yeah, I think like, some people, like I would call in my kind of value judgment, I would call them the religious contactor. They would say like, no, of course it's put the emotion aside. It's physics. It's this exploration that started with Steve Paxton, this kind of traditionalist contact will bring that perspective, which is also of course part and in the space. But if I really think of it, I don't think that those people who initiated the research, they really knew what they are doing. They were kind of exploring and they gave birth to something, but we don't have any idea because it's so new, and we don't really know what it does to people and what does it, where does it touch people.
They were very true to what was happening. Hence, the Contact Quarterly had so many different definitions and still does, like what is contact improvisation. I had an interview with Nancy years ago. If you want, I can share the link. It's in our iDoctor website still. And I was asking, like, where does the idea even to have a newsletter came in? And that was it. There was a clear definition, a clear decision of not at some moment not to have a training trademark, or this certification, teacher training or whatever. And at that moment, it was clear that it's so much different ways of looking and relating and defining what they're doing. But then they needed to be informed of each other's ways, that they could collect a newsletter. Okay, I did this. This is my definition. I did that. I encountered this. So that was a way of communicating and gathering information and knowledge. It wasn't collective knowledge production means Contact Quarterly, not to try to define what it is, defining the container as our body and keep observing what's happening. Yeah. And not trying to police. I mean, probably because there are certain people who are editing it and holding it, there may have been a selective process, not of information, but of people. If I know you, I'm going to get your information. But maybe there's 10 other people who are doing the work I don't know. And because I'm doing this work, it's a selection, no? It's conscious or unconscious. There's always a selective process in putting things on paper or now with online. Of course, it's limited. It's not the ultimate integrative, holistic, everything truth, no? But we're not seeking that.
And to some extent, I think, like, for me, now I've been back after many years that I haven't been so involved in teaching contact improvisation. I'm back teaching the form, on a regular basis. And for me, it gives a lot of confidence to start by sharing that contact is a messy exploration and we don't really know, rather than saying it is this and this and this. Because, like when you come to a jam space, like, it happened to me so many times in my life, that I just come to I would say especially in festival, but also sometimes in more like city setting, that I come to dance and I come maybe with the intention, okay, I want to move my body, I want to ride momentum, whatever, the empiric manifestation of CI. And then I find myself, oh my God, like it really triggered something so different than what I imagined. And this doesn't happen so often when I do other physical activities that are very intense with partner work, and I can name a few, but and I think that there is a certain there is a certain allowance in CI. Like I just see it kind of as that there's the vortex is a good image, that there is a certain center that we shared, which can be observed, that has some skills that we can learn. but then it spirals in all direction, and there is no place that you can say. It's very hard to say this is not contact anymore.
I remember a friend of mine who was at the initial moments of building the community in Turkey. He was assisting me and helping me for a short time, and we were hearing that some other people are doing something in the name of contact. And he told me one night, but Defne, until we hear people got sticks and start hitting each other, we can just be and not call it contact. Maybe it's okay. We don't need to worry. They do their version. It was beautiful reminder. Like we don't need to police. We don't need to have our version. And it really allowed me to laugh and relax. And yes.
Yeah,
I agree. And I think what you're talking about is also this openness is calling for mindfulness. Like it's like if you think of it as our body, like there's a lot going on, and I zoom into as a teacher also. I can, of course, I always say this. We thin slice things to learn the technique. But as one of my massage therapy teachers told me once, is technique is a bridge to intuition. And we can redefine what intuition is in arts but I think in contact there is this. If we transform the meaning of intuition, like how you listen, how you attend, how you follow the flow or decide to go against the flow, lead, follow, all these terms that we use in contact teaching can really, as you said, shift meaning in the dance all the time. Even the yes and no keeps shifting meaning. No, we don't like when I push back, is it a yes or a no? But it creates a yes for the dance when I say no to you. What is the agency? Like the third subject, the dance itself is. And for me, my inquiry in consent improvisation for the dance is not only in the partner. Do I give consent to my partner to touch me there or to lead me there? I'm more curious, what is the consent of the dance? What does the dance need and require and feedback? Is it okay for the dance that I do this or we do this? So there's a multi-layers of consent between the two human bodies and beings, body minds, and between dance and the human constellation. So the agency of the dance is such an amazing teacher that creates the mess, if I may say, messy situation that I need to be aware of constantly. And if I have tools and techniques, the purists, let's say the Puritan contactors, of course we need that. Of course it's there. That's why I end up teaching that as much as I teach the social relational metaphors and the consent and all that.
Yeah, no, I think just the fact that so many people can be engaged with it for so many years and still ask the question, it already points to that's the evidence that we don't really know. And that there is this, how you call it,
the curious and joyful to go there, no? Yeah.
How did you call it? The ma?
The
ma is present. Is ingrained within the practice. Maybe that's the kind of the spirit that keeps traveling from generation to generation, because those first generation of artists, they couldn't have come to that research without this wandering spirit of like, let's just see what happens, and not saying let's do this so we get that. And it always fails. We know it. When you have a clear idea, unless you 2 or 3 people dancing in contact have a clear idea that magically happens sometimes. I mean, we may have an amazing dance today, and all the contactors who's listening this will be affirming us. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a contact. In 2 hours, we're going to have an amazing dance again, because I'm going to maybe be full with the food that I eat. You will be having a discussion with your wife, and then you're going to bring that emotional space into that, and we will not be able to meet. Because our bodies are super able, super technical, and we had an amazing flow dance 2 hours ago, is not going to necessitate the meeting, because our other social, psychological, biological makeup is shifting all the time. Yeah. No, that's the beauty.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's where I also want to start my lessons. Like there's place for emotions, thoughts, and physicality in that space. Like how are you physically, mentally, and emotionally? And I encourage people to name their emotional spaces and states at the beginning of the class, not to sweep anything under the carpet. You can have a sad dance contact and still dance, no? Sorry for
I
cutting you
hope
off.
we manage to also meet again in that space, the pedagogical space. I want to wrap it up because I think you
Yes,
also,
please.
the time is limited. And I
Yeah.
want to just give you a bit of time to share with the listeners who maybe are curious to be able to follow a bit what you're doing, and if they got intrigued, like where could we find you? You
Yes.
don't have a website, no?
I do.
You do.
A
I
friend
didn't.
of mine, a beautiful student friend of mine, like she was my student and she's my colleague now. We even do the contact event in Turkey together as a same team. Encouraged me to create this website at the beginning of the pandemic, and I did. But I still know that I didn't updated my coming up event, so she's gonna help me to do that. I'm really
No,
bad,
because
but
it's
Defne
not
Erdur,
connected to your social media. I was looking in your social media. I didn't, like the
I'm super
you know
bad online.
my my graphic designer, business coach, personality wanted to say, "Hey, Daphne, where is your
Help
sheet?
me, help me.
Make it accessible." So maybe I will definitely
Okay.
share it in the show notes, your website.
Yes.
But maybe you can
Yes.
share people a bit what else they can meet you if there's some
Yes.
public
Yes.
events, online stuff, therapy
Yeah.
session. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some coaching for that from you, evidently, to make myself visible. No, I have a website called defneerdur.com, and there's upcoming events section there that Yağmur Kutlar, who's a contact teacher as well in Çanakkale in Turkey, also developed it for me, and we're gonna update it soon with her. I know that I will be teaching in Impulse Dance this coming summer, and I'm going to teach my Everybody Knows workshop, which is more embodied anatomy, like the experiential anatomy based improvisation, where I take people from being one cell, like it's really also body mind centering informed, from one cell to embryo to being birth, crawling and walking. So it's a evolutionary path that helps us, the images and metaphors that help us to dance. I've been teaching it in the last decade in Impulse Dance. And I'm going to work on embodying consent improvisation work on the intensives there also. So those two workshops will be in Vienna. I don't know if it's going to happen, but the CI Silent Retreat in Italy is mostly hosting me. And the beginning of summer, there may be a retreat there, but they may also cancel it. They're evaluating it. But yes, the meditation and contact, the silence retreats, I'm really interested in. Again, in Vienna, there's going to be an IDOCTE symposium, which is going to be on the, let me see, 20 something, the second weekend of the, yeah, it's here. I'm sorry, I'm going to give the right time so that I don't confuse anyone. Yes, the Impulse Dance is going to be, I'm going to teach on the week of the 11th, and the embodying consent is 16, 17. And then 22nd, 23rd, and 24th is the IDOCTE Symposium for dance teachers. This is a more pedagogic reflection. You're super invited also. I'm going to send you a mail. I realized I didn't. And from that week, before the symposium, Marco Pellizzari and myself, we are giving this MA residency. And we are going to invite anyone, not only from dance, from any field, any researcher, any inquirer, any student, teacher who wants to generate this gap in their work and see what unfolds. So we call it the pregnant nothingness. And we're going to see what needs to be born. And we're going to give birth probably or not in the symposium. And then I'm going to be in France. There's a contact festival at the end of August. From the 2026th, it's called the Coquillage Improvisation. I think L'Oellama is organizing it in Brittany, the west coast of France, northwest. And then we're going to have a site-specific work in Lyon with Mathieu Godot through contact and public space from the 20th to the 25th of September in France. And then we're going to have a fall in CI in Turkey, 1st to the 8th of November. It's not a camp, it's not a festival, it's a research meeting place. We call it Fall in CI. There will be every teaching is co-teaching. We don't let anyone to just come into the place and this is my work. We challenge the teachers to collaborate in front of the participants. So we share the challenging space of learning and studying. And there's a lot of space for labbing and reflecting. I also have a project called Moving Library, which is a reading, studying space through scores, through contact and different movement scores to be able to read, because I have super difficulty sitting down and reading. So that came from a very individual need. And we've been sharing that project in contact spaces. Moving library is going to take place in fall in CI as well. And then I'm giving a lot of workshops for therapists also in Turkey, in Slovenia, hopefully in Italy in the coming year, where I integrate, I call, for example, one of them I'm going to teach today in a psychology department, which is called creating, a somatic approach to self-care in precarious times, tuning into our bodies, ourselves before we reach out to others. So I work a lot with therapists for self-care and awareness, building capacity so that we can hold space for others and ourselves. So I like working in the transitional line between life, therapy, and arts. That's also my pedagogical formation. I cannot not be therapeutic in a dance space and not dancey in a therapeutic space, I think, as you have witnessed. I'm not really consciously doing that, but it's also my embodiment, and where I feel comfortable. And I think I promised myself a few years ago that I'm not going to go in facilitating spaces where I will not feel comfortable with myself, with the environmental space, the architecture even, and the people. So I try my best to be at my best.
Hey, Defne, it's been a big pleasure to share a bit more time and space together. And I hope I can catch you in reality. I mean, this is also a form of reality. Yeah, I think in the summer I will be in Israel. But I'm sure the time will come. Yeah, the time will come. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to hear you, and I've learned a lot.
Same
Until
here.
the next
Thank
time.
you for holding the space. Super
Ciao.
Appreciated, Matan. Thank you.
Ciao.
If you want to see more precious and insightful moments, make sure to check our short clips playlist. To see longer interviews, check out the full episode playlist just below it. And to be notified for all future videos, click the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell. See you on the next episode.